Today's video is about this GCN video and some of the claims they've made in it. I don't believe them, but I'm going to actually prove them through consumer level science.
Here goes. Number one, the plastic valves can be a total pain. Now, most, but not all brands use plastic valve stems, and this helps to reduce weight and is easier to manufacture them. But over time, when placing a pump head on and off the valve, the bonded joint where the valve attaches to the tube can start to leak.
There's a real simple solution to this. If you have any of these plasticky valve stemmed tubes, use them as emergency carries only. And get yourself, if it's a daily runner, let's call it, these new type Silka, this brand QE and Ride Now, all have metal valve stems now, which you can screw down and anchor to the rim, so you don't have to worry about your pump messing them up.
Number two, sizing and permanent stretch. Unlike butyl or latex tubes, TPU is inelastic, meaning once you inflate it to a certain size, it stays that way. So if, like me, you're running a set of TPU tubes in some 32mm wide tires, you can't simply take them out and reuse them in a narrower 28mm tire.
Calling TPU tubes inelastic is not correct. But interestingly enough, it got me thinking about trying to prove their claims about the stretch in the TPU tubes. So of course, this is going to be the bulk of the video, and we're going to do some consumer level science.
Today's test features 21 mil wide rim, 28 mil GP5000. Same 21 mil wide rim with a 32 Conti all season, and finally for gravel, 30 mil wide rim with a 50 mil Pathfinder on it. And we're going to use 3 identical Ride Now tubes, which are 18 to 32 rated. We're going to use a Maroka tube, which is rated from, I believe, 23 to 32. And just because I have no use for it anymore, I'm going to destroy this tube with this click valve assembly in it to prove my points. Pre-inflation, every tube had an approximate width of 32 millimeters. Using my trusty dusty Topeak mini boombox, I inflated each tube to 5 psi and then measured it. This was a pain in the ass to do, but near the valve stem, the tubes were approximately 21.1 mils in diameter. 28 mil tire was taken up to 95 psi to fully seated, then dropped down to 70 psi and left overnight. The 32 mil tire was seated at 71 psi, and I reduced it to 65 psi and once again left overnight. I'm going to record my inflation of tube 3 in the 50 mil setup because I don't think this is going to go well, because remember, these smaller tubes are 32 mil maximum. Did I ever tell you how much I hate the head on this Pro pump? I've got this up to 37 psi, no epic fail. Ooh, and a little poppy. I'm going to go up to 45 psi and cut it off there and just let it sit. .45 psi. Just for craps and giggles, I'm going to put this gravel TPU tube in to see how it does for dimensions. Although I know it's way too much pressure, I pumped the gravel tube up to 43 psi. There always has to be a sacrifice to the gods, so I'm going to try to take out one of these super cheap Amazon tubes. If you remember from my other video, it's the one with the recycled drink box straw as the actual valve stem. That was a lot of faffing around. I'm going to take this up to 43 psi. There we go. On quite possibly the worst tube that Amazon has available to you. For craps and giggles, because I'll never use this ever again, I am going to test a butyl tube with a range of 23 to 25 in my gravel setup, just to see if it can survive. We got to hold these things to the same standard as the TPUs. First thing we'll do is we'll take this little butyl tube and put it up to 5 psi with my mini boom box. I don't think this is going to end well. Oh, look at that. That's pretty tiny. It hasn't popped the tire on the bead, but we are at 44 psi. I'm not going to take this rim too much further. I don't want to get too much pressure on a mountain biking rim. We'll go to 50. Oh, nasty. There it is. So I guess the butyl tube is not that flexible. Here are the tubes. These are the identical tubes, 1, 2, and 3. 28 mil, 32 mil, and 49 or 50 mil. The tube 3, if I line up the joins on them, or the seams, 3 has an obvious bulge in it on either side of the seam. And there's one other section where we're starting to bulge. I would not use this tube again. I'm considering this failed. But 1 and 2 are exactly fine. This is the cheap tube we used, and it also shows a little bit of signs of bulging and some funny deformation in it. This tube is now a blow-up sample, let's call it. No issues with the gravel tube, which has a maximum of 47, but we put it in a 50 mil tire. And of course, our micro butyl tube, which didn't really fare so well.
These are the actual results of my tests. I probably should have got a better protocol before I did this, rather than just having pure fun. But what you can clearly see is GCN is not correct that the tubes are inelastic, but they do not recover all of the deformation they experience. If you look here, I'll just go right down to the 3A test, which is when I put the smaller undersized tube in the gravel tire. It actually increased in diameter, if you look at pre-test and post-test, by 20%. But what also happened is some areas there were bulges that were way above that, say a 40% increase in diameter. So this goes to the question then, can I reuse these tubes in a smaller size tire?
So here we've got tubes 1, 2, and 3. Now, if GCN is right, tube 3, which is massively overstretched, should not work in my 28 mil setup. So let's give it a try.
I'm going to spare you watching me screw around for 5 minutes. The tube was really hard to try to get in the 28 mil. And when I finally got it in, I had to use the tire glider to get it seated finally.
I'm going to give this one to GCN with the number 3 because when I look at this tube, if you can see right here, I've actually managed to strafe the tube with the tire glider because it's stretched so much that it doesn't fit within the tire. But remember, I put this into a 50 mil tire and this tube is designed up to 32s. So this one goes into the bin, and we're going to do another little experiment here. We're going to take the number 2, which has minimal volume expansion. This one went in the 32, and now I'm going to put it in the 28. Now, of course, if this doesn't work, this video will change completely and it'll be an apology video to GCN. So I got this back up to 70 PSI on this 28. It's definitely harder than when I initially installed it. I gotta tell you, I think I'm starting to believe GCN on this one.
This is me screwing around with tube 1, trying to reinstall it. It was the original tube that went into the 28 mil tire. And it was definitely, once again, harder because of that small increase in diameter than when I originally installed it. I, of course, immediately jumped on GCN when they're talking about inelastic. And that's what happens when someone technical reacts to someone that's guilty of dumbing something down rather than simplifying it. So what they meant to say is that the tubes don't recover all of the strain when they're inflated. And from the last couple of minutes of video there, you can see it was a royal pain in the arse for me to get any of these pre-inflated tubes back in to the same tire. So what I'd recommend is, if you're in the field and you have a flat, use a fresh TPU tube. If you want to patch it, put the patch one back in, and I'll get into patches a little later in this video, after you're home with all your tools.
Number 3, phantom punctures. Now this is a problem I've luckily not experienced myself, but I know a number of people who have, especially when using the super cheap TPU tubes.
We have something in common. I've never had a problem with a ghost or phantom leak before either. What I would suggest to people is don't cheap out on these tubes and get the higher quality ones. There should be way less issues.
Number 4, repair difficulties. So as I mentioned earlier, TPU tubes are not exactly cheap. So if you do have a puncture, you're going to want to repair your inner tube. I have successfully repaired lots of TPU tubes, but I've also failed lots of times.
GCN says that it's difficult to patch a TPU tube. They're correct if you're using the crappy stickers that some of them come with. Never use those. You can get patch kits with most of these now, which are essentially just pieces of the actual tube, which you use rubber cement to glue on. But my favorite, and if you look at my other video, is the Part GP-2, this super patch. Here's an example of it stuck on, even on, let's call it the seam or the flat spot on a cheap tube, and it works perfectly fine. Also, even when you fail sections of tubes, this is a Tubolito tube with a Ride Now patch on it, these work fine too. The only real time that you have issues is if you have a nasty pinch flat or you have a failure around a weak spot. This is on the Tubolito, around where the valve stem is glued to the tube body. If you look at my Windspace SLC3, I have got TPU tubes front and rear. The rear one has a patch which has been in there for at least 8 months and let's say 1000 K, but both tires lose air at the exact same rate. I've had no issues with the Part GP-2 and would highly recommend it. So GCN, I think you're full of crap.
And then finally, number 5, heat and rim brakes. Now there's an ongoing debate here about using TPU tubes with rim brakes, and in particular with carbon fiber wheels. You see, sustained braking on long descents can in some cases generate enough.
Issue number 5 reminds me of a box set by a declining music superstar, the last CD. They're getting a little desperate here. And in this case, they're exactly right. It can be an issue, but you have to A, own a rim brake bike, B, have carbon rims, C, run TPU tubes, and D, live in the mountains with prolonged descents. That doesn't apply to a lot of us. Regrettably, it does apply to me though. And on my rim brake bikes, I, at least as per their recommendations, run the heavier weight 40 to 45 gram TPU tubes to mitigate against that. Also, I don't brake a lot. That helps it out.
GCN, I think this is a tie. I completely agree with you now on stretching of TPU tubes can be an issue, particularly if you're trying to install a previously used TPU tube on a smaller diameter, but still within the manufacturer specified range tire. Fair enough. I disagree with you though on the durability and issues with TPU tube patching. On that one, I've had really no issues. So with that, if you got any questions or comments, leave them below. Feel free to light me up. Like, subscribe, I think you know the drill. And of course, the weather's getting nicer, so go outside and ride hard if you got a chance.